And I'm just about to say hello, Jamie. Hi, Jamie, to real Jamie on the show, because last week saw the launch of a colourful children's picture book aimed at 3 to 6 year olds, featuring 4 disabled characters. The book's called The Kelvin Hill Kids Visit the Kelpies, and it was written by disability rights activist Jamie Szymkowiak and illustrated by Ali Curry.
Hi, Janice.
Hello. Tell me about what sort of ignited this idea for you of writing this book.
Well, firstly, thanks very much for having me on. And, the idea of Kelvin Hill Kids, it's basically been, I would say, 2 years in the making. I had run a political campaign looking at the underrepresentation of disabled people in politics. That was really successful. The Scottish Government funded Inclusion Scotland to facilitate that, and I'd spent months after that being awarded thinking about the next area of disability in the public life that I could focus on. And it was the run-up to Christmas last year where I was searching for a present for my little brother Christopher, who's got Down syndrome. I couldn't find a picture book featuring a disabled main character anywhere in any of our major bookshops. And just to give a little bit of context, literally there was thousands of picture books, including one bookshelf which was dedicated to a particular author. And I just thought to myself, I'm a disabled person. If I'm not going to write it, who is really? So I had the idea on New Year's Day, got putting pen to paper, developing the characters, and then it's the last 9 months in development, and last week we published it and launched it successfully at an event in Glasgow.
And it's a lovely thing. I got it in my hands at the moment, beautifully illustrated, very colourful. It's going to absolutely appeal to younger readers. But how extraordinary. I'm imagining people listening all over the country, and suddenly it'll be like a light bulb for them who've maybe not thought about this issue before, suddenly realising about this non-representation of disabled characters. And I guess, Jamie, it's important when you were talking about your political activism, when it comes to the wee ones, it's important to get in there at a very young age, isn't it? To also appeal to non-disabled kids, to get everyone thinking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you some feedback in the events that we've been running the last couple of weeks. Disabled parents of disabled children have warmly welcomed the book. They've thought, wow, usually I have to fork out an arm and a leg to import a book from abroad, from an unknown publisher, an unknown author, just because it's got a disabled character in it.
Yeah.
And then to give you a couple of feedback from other people, there was parents of non-disabled children that were looking at the book and they were like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know any disabled people. Perhaps this isn't for me. And then when I was talking to them, saying that if you look at a couple of the pages, you'll understand that this is a book for everybody, and it's a really good way of introducing non-disabled children to disability, which for some can be quite an awkward subject to approach.
Indeed.
Just thinking on my feet here, but the wonderful series of books by Cressida Cowell, How to Train Your Dragon. Well, many of the Vikings have disabilities. Many of them have lost an arm to a dragon, including Hiccup. I'm not sure if he has in the books, but certainly in the TV spin-off by DreamWorks he has. And I don't think there's any child that would look at him and go, oh, he's disabled. Yeah. They would look at him and go, well, he's got a dragon. So, it's about making it accessible and making it interesting. But certainly there is a responsibility, from publishers and from booksellers to get those books into the shops. I'm so sorry that Jamie had that experience. It's horrifying.
I think it's quite important to give a bit of context to listeners. Disabled people do make up 1 in 5 of the population, and if we are looking at bookshelves, are we seeing 1 in 5 main characters being represented by disability? The answer is absolutely not.
And indeed, Jamie, I've got your book, and it has I hadn't thought about it, I just noticed the font, but this is a special font for dyslexic readers, I believe.
Yeah, thanks very much for highlighting that. We've been trailing the book on social media for a good few months before publishing, and there was a dad that tweeted us and said, I would like to be able to read your book to my children. I'm dyslexic. There's this font called Dyslexie Font. Would you consider publishing it? So I did a bit of investigation. It turns out that the font is indeed made by somebody who is dyslexic themselves for dyslexic people. And it just resonated so much with what we were looking to achieve with the Kelvin Hill Kids that I wanted to make sure that dyslexic parents would be able to read the story to their children.
Kerry, how important do you think that is?
I think it's amazing. I've never heard of this font, and I'm, it's well documented that I'm a, very highly dyslexic person. So I'll certainly have to, Google that and find out what it is.
Let's just hear a little moment from the Kelvin Hill Kids, read by a young friend of this programme, Finlay.
Big smiles, say cheese, instructed Mrs. Innes. Cheese, roared the kids. Well done, everyone, said Grant. Shall we get some ice cream? Grace grinned and said, Strawberry for me, please. Delicious, said Grace, wiping the leftovers from her face. I know the secret story of the Kelpies, said Iona proudly. She looked at Haran and whispered, Do you want me to tell you? Yes, please, replied an eager Haran. As the kids finished their ice cream, Iona told them about the legend of the Kelpies. The Kelpies live in the lochs of Scotland, declared Iona. Grown-ups can't see them. They only come out from the water when they know children are near. The lochs are deep and the water is very cold. The magical Kelpies keep kids safe. They protect us. Wow, gasped Haran, listening to Iona's every word.
Our thanks to young reader Finlay for that extract from the Kelvin Hill Kids. Visit the Kelpies, written by Jamie Szymkowiak.
And what would be really amazing is if we could somehow combine the two.
I would like to just point out that the Kelvin Hill Kids does combine the two, and it's available now.
Brilliant.
Well, look, on that very good promotional chat there, we shall have to leave it. But thank you all very much indeed for joining me from around the country, and indeed from Berlin too. Thank you. Jamie, Kerry and Emma, thanks so much. You can find out more information about Jamie's book, The Kelvin Hill Kids. Go to the Kelpies, Kerry's Harper and the Circus of Dreams, and Publishers Barrington Stoke at my BBC Radio Scotland show page.